Is it cheaper to hire a fence contractor or to take the DIY route? Let's dive into this wooden privacy fence installation, but before we roll up our sleeves and get too serious, let me share with you the quotes I received from contractors. And here's the space I'm going to build it in. If you've been following along, you've noticed I've created a series of videos titled, Is It Cheaper? This DIY fence, this was my second project that I DIY'd in my new yard, and this thing was a beast. This was a heck of an installation to take on. Very labor intense, but also very rewarding as well. And I will say this was my first fence that I've ever done. But I know what you're thinking. You want to talk numbers. So while my boy supervises me, I'm going to go over some of the digits with you. Let's get started. First, let's go over the cost for a fencing contractor. I got 3 separate quotes, and the cheapest of the 3 was $12,000. Ouch! That's expensive, right? Well, my theory is this ridiculous price point is due to inflation. And I know what you're thinking. This dude talks about inflation a lot. But let me tell you this. The inflation pill is a tough one to swallow, at least for me. It's just so darn frustrating. About 3 years ago, construction material costs went through the roof. And naturally, all trades and contractors raised their prices. Rightfully so. You can't argue with that. I mean, their costs went up. The customer's cost should go up. But I can argue with this and say that construction materials since then have came down a lot. Now, they are still way too high, but they have came down. However, the contractors' price points have not. So now my theory is they raised their prices when the cost went up, and they were able to double and triple their price points. And after seeing that customers were still willing to buy their services, they just left it that way. So now their profits are crazy high. And now this is just pure greed at this point. Oh, and if you do decide to DIY your own fence, make sure you call 811 first. It's a service that comes out and marks for any underground utilities or lines, so that way you don't hit them when you dig. But to argue for the contractors, doing a fence like this, it is a hard job. It is a hard install. And so their price points should reflect that, at least in the labor. But a couple of years ago, and that's it, just a couple of years ago, a fence with this linear footage was only $5,000. And today, the lowest quote given is $12,000. That's quite an increase. Now, it did warrant that originally when prices went up, but they have came down a smidge, so the prices should too. That's all I'm saying. If you want to hire a fence contractor or any trade, I highly support that. I've been in the construction business my whole life, and I'm not picking on any trades. Oh, and if you're wondering what these 2x4s are here, they're just angled supports. You see, I'm a one-man show, and I need all the extra hands that I can get, so it's just helping brace the boards as I go down the line. And if you're wondering why some of these posts are really high, every other one was anchored extra deep. I wanted to do the extra anchoring because I live in Florida, and we do have a thing called hurricane season, and it can get pretty dramatic. And since I'm DIYing this, I wanted to go ahead and take the extra measure now. So every other post was an additional extra foot deep, making it almost 4 foot deep as an anchor. The rest of them were 32 inches approximately. So I would say this fence isn't going anywhere. You know, short of a tornado or a hurricane. But I did my due diligence and I went as deep as I could. Okay, while I work on the gate construction, let's go over my cost, as I know that's the number you really want to know, the DIY cost. And my materials cost me $3,600. That includes everything from A to Z. I'm talking the nails, the wood, glue, hardware, hinges, concrete, you name it, $3,600. And with the lowest bid from the fencing contractor coming in at $12,000, I saved myself a whopping $8,400. Woo! If you have any experience with DIYing fence, or if you're a professional fencing contractor, definitely chime in below and let me know any of the things that I did wrong or any things I could have done to improve it. After all, this is my first fence, but I want to learn as I go. I mean, I am a DIYer, and I was working on this project in the backyard, but the weather kicked in and got nasty, so that's why I posted today's video. And I've done all these projects since this fence, but in case you're wondering why the fence has these really ugly black spray patterns on it, that's not done tastefully. I have a shallow well on my irrigation which has a lot of rust, and it reacts in a black way with any organic materials. So I'm working on it. I'm coming up with a plan. Bear with me. So would you DIY your fence?